The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just take note at the beginning that I'm splitting my time with the member from Avalon. Madam Speaker, I consider it an honour to offer a few thoughts on this debate. And I appreciate it being brought forward onto the floor of the House today. May I say as a starting proposition that I regard the government of China as a asymmetrical existential threat to Canada, unlike any other of our potential opposition. I also take the view that we as Canadians are exceedingly naive about the ambitions of the Communist Party of China, and I also take the view that the Chinese government knows a great deal more about us than we know about them. I thought, Madam Speaker, would be helpful if I just went through my week and talked about the various times in which this issue has come up. So, as you know, Madam Speaker, this week was Science Meets Parliament. And I had an absolutely fascinating conversation with a scientist from the University of Toronto who is a leading scientist on the CRISPR technology for gene editing and gene splicing. Brilliant, fascinating, and the mind leaps to all kinds of possibilities. However, on second thought, not all of these possibilities are to the betterment of humankind. When I asked the scientist about Chinese involvement, he said that this was open source technology and that there was an exchange of research. But I got the distinct impression that the knowledge flow seemed to be one way. So we're in a situation where Canadian brains and Canadian taxpayers' money funds leading edge research and someone else benefits. And then the someone else that benefits turns it into commercial technology and sells it back to us. Not a happy cycle. So, Madam Speaker, this is a serious issue in the academic community. Second, last night was Taiwan night at the Chateau Laurier, and I can't imagine that anyone walked away from that evening thinking that the Ukrainian issue was anything other than the #1 threat to the disturbance of world order. And I can also not imagine that anyone would walk away from that night not thinking that a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan was anything other than the #2 threat to world order. This is, Madam Speaker, our 11th largest trading partner, 5th largest trading partner in Asia, and it shows that this is a threat that we think is kind of over there, but in fact it's quite relevant to us. I just point out as an illustration, Madam Speaker, the speed with which the independence of Hong Kong was simply rolled up, regardless of the millions of Hong Kongers who took to the street to protest their rights and their freedoms, which have now effectively been lost. Can we be so naive as to think that the Chinese government wants to do the same thing in Taiwan? The third item, Madam Speaker, was the election of yet another Marcos in the Philippines. The name Marcos stands for, well, it stands in infamy, really, for rapacious greed. The Marcos generation, the Marcos family over the generations have looted the Philippines of its wealth and then sold off the assets to its highest bidder. China must be delighted with that outcome. No longer are they going to be challenged with their building of military islands in the South China Sea, nor are they going to be challenged by the severely outgunned Philippines Navy in the South China Sea. So this is just simply a terrific outcome as far as China is concerned. Fourth incident, Mr. Speaker, and this is Madam Speaker, and that's just this week. I had a conversation with someone that everyone in this chamber would know, and his comment was, China doesn't regard Canada as a serious player, quote unquote. This, Madam Speaker, was in the context of how we take our own security and the multiplicity of covert and non-covert intrusions into Canadian society and life by the government of China. Fifth incident, Madam Speaker, you'll know that last week was an opportunity to speak with the governments in exile from Tibet. And some here might even have Tibetan interns working with them. Does anyone actually believe that Tibet is a free and independent country? And that is perfectly the way the Chinese government likes it. Sixth, Madam Speaker, it's my intention next week to initiate the debate on S211, alluded to by my friend. And the simple summary of the bill is that Canadian companies and governments are going to have to examine their supply chains and certify that they're free of forced labor. This week I was asked by one of my colleagues as to solar panels being sold in Canada and whether either the panels or the components were infected by slavery. The concerning answer, Madam Speaker, is that there is a strong likelihood. The day before that, I was in a conversation with one of Canada's leading journalists, and he asserted that 90% of the cotton products coming out of Xinjiang are produced by slaves, likely Uyghurs. Madam Speaker, that is just my week. That is just the concern that Canadians are expressing to me in various forms. I'd also commend to your attention, Madam Speaker, a book I just finished by Peter Frankman, a professor from Oxford, called The New Silk Roads. And in it, he outlines all of the initiatives around the world that the Chinese government has taken with respect to the New Silk Roads. And the fly cover reads, all roads used to lead to Rome. Now they lead to Beijing. So Peter Frankman argues. In the age of Brexit and Trump, the West is buffeted by the tides of isolationism and fragmentation. Yet to the East, this is a moment of optimism as a new network of relationships takes place along ancient trade routes. It's a very clear-eyed analysis of what is going on in the world, literally under our noses. And it is, and we of course naturally look to our American colleagues for leadership, but as many have rightly pointed out, the American leadership is fractured along partisan lines and self-consumed by difficulties within their political orbit. Some of the deals that have been consummated under the Silk Road Initiative have been disastrous for many of the countries. One of the classic examples is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was dominated by the greedy and kleptocratic government run by the Rajapaksa family, indebting the nation to vanity projects and then being forced to sell off the country's assets at discounted prices. So, Madam Speaker, as I wind up, I want to thank my colleagues for bringing this debate forward. It is a serious debate, and it is something that needs to take place I therefore will be supporting the idea of a standing committee. Thank you.